Hey folks, George here. This time we're going to wrap up our discussion about the moral issue of drug use and drug legalization with John Hosper's article, What Libertarianism Is. Hospers starts his article with the definition, or at least his definition of libertarianism. He suggests that libertarianism is the political and philosophical position that says every person is the owner of his own life, and no one else can interfere unless to protect the liberty of others. What's another way to say this? No one is anyone else's master, and no one is anyone else's slave. Libertarianism holds that no one has the right to enslave the life of another or any portion of another's life. Now, this whole article is not about drug use and the morality or immorality of using drugs. Actually, Hospers is going to say you have the right to do all the drugs you want. Rather, this article gives us the libertarian framework so that we can learn how to argue about, from Hosper's perspective, libertarian positions regarding drug use and so on and so forth, and things like taxation and the arts and so on and so forth. So please bear that in mind, as a whole lot of this article isn't necessarily about drug use, but it is from this libertarian position from which we can pull out the morality or immorality of banning drug use and other sorts of similar activities. John Hospers tells us that libertarianism is based on the right to life, the right to liberty, and the right to property. Now, those first ones seem very easy to understand and very uncontroversial. It's that last one that raises the most controversy. So Hosper spends the bulk of this article defending the right to property. The first part of his reasoning is that without property, no other rights are possible. Property, after all, is the means by which you live. Now, Hospers doesn't quite make this distinction, but Marxists do when they distinguish between personal property and private property. For Hospers, it's all just property. You could get into that when we discuss Marx sometime in the distant future, yes? The right to property is the assurance that what I've worked for will be there in the future. Yeah, it'll still be there for me. What does that entail? The right to property allows me and everybody else to plan for life in the future. Now, governments, according to Hospers, always violate this via taxation, right? Now, all that said, property is, again, very controversial. The one thing that Hospers never mentions is this problem of initial acquisition. Now, that's a philosophical problem. We'll get to that in the distant future when we talk about things like political philosophy. How does something that is owned by nobody, presumably, at the beginning of time, how did it become private property or owned by somebody? That's a problem that Hospers overlooks, but it is a significant problem for those people who do argue for the right to property. Now, Hospers acknowledges the counterposition. Why not just allow that everybody owns everything? If that's the case, according to Hospers, then somebody can come in and take your food, somebody can come in and take your bed, somebody can come in and take your home. Then it's merely the strongest who wins. Whoever takes your food, your clothes, your home, your bed, etc. Right? That's no morality at all, if we recall Pogeman way back when it's just the will of the strongest. Only the strong survive. That's no rights at all. That's no morality at all. It would be, furthermore, to repeat the claim from earlier, it would be impossible to plan for any kind of good life if that were the case. Now, the whole libertarian position is that governments frequently force people to do things against their moral rights. Governments do not have the moral right to do so many of the things that they force upon us. Governments, however, should only be allowed to force people to protect other people's rights. The only proper role of government is that of the protector of the citizen against aggression. Beyond that, government shouldn't intrude on my life, my business, my daily activities, or my morality. Governments should merely protect human rights, the right to life, the right to liberty, and the right to property. Really what Hospers is arguing for is only negative rights, as opposed to positive rights. Hospers rejects the notion of positive rights. What are negative rights? What are positive rights? Negative rights are those rights that I have. I have the right to life. What that means is I have the right that you don't interfere with my life, right? Whereas a positive right, an example of a positive right would be a right to education. Hospers is going to reject that. We'll see in a second. Hospers is going to say you don't have a positive right to education. What is a positive right? A positive right is a right that forces somebody else to do something for me or give something to me. For example, the positive right to education. That forces people to teach me. Nobody has positive rights, according to Hospers' libertarianism. Rather, we only have negative rights, such that we have the right that other people cannot do certain things to me. To really explicate this point, Hospers asks, should I be forced to take care of others? No. After all, anybody who needs care, that person chose that life. That person chose to, let's say, smoke cigarettes all their life. Why should I be forced to pay for that person's health care who ruined his own life by smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day? That person must live with the consequences of his own choices. We all must live with the consequences of our own choices. What about pollution? Hospers acknowledges that pollution does violate our property rights. It does violate our property rights. How might pollution do that? Why? Because pollution damages my stuff and damages me. And so perhaps that might surprise you that Hospers does believe that pollution shall be regulated. Big companies should be regulated regarding how much pollution they cause, because that, of course, damages my own life and my own property. Yes? Now, let's go back to the individual, however. Laws protecting individuals against themselves are immoral. Paternalistic laws, therefore, are immoral, according to Hospers and libertarians. There should be no laws against drugs as long as there is no threat to others. Now, he brings up the point of drunk driving. Of course, drunk driving should be illegal. Why? Because it harms others. But should drunkenness be illegal? Of course not, especially if you're in your own home and you are not harming other people. But drunk driving harms everybody that's on the road and puts everybody's life at risk who is on the road with that drunk driver. Let's say I become a thief to support my drug habit. Yes, Hospers is going to say, of course that's illegal. Everybody agrees that theft should be illegal, but not the drug use. The theft is what's illegal, not the drug use or the drug addiction. Yes? Now, all that said, one more time, laws forcing people to help others are also immoral. Laws that guarantee jobs, laws that guarantee medicine, laws that guarantee education, those are immoral. Why? Because jobs are produced by people. Medicine is produced by people. Education is produced by people. You can't enslave teachers. You can't force teachers to deliver some good, right? You can't force teachers to teach. You can't force doctors to practice medicine. And you can't force business owners to make jobs. So really, this is the strongest expression of John Hosper's libertarian position against positive rights, right? You don't have a right to other people and what they have to give you, like education, medicine, or jobs, etc. That seems very cold then. What about the hungry? What about the impoverished? Hospers has a response to that. if you actually let everyone be free, this wouldn't happen. If you let people be free, they will get their own food, and people would flourish, according to this libertarian position. Is that accurate? Well, that's for you to empirically determine. Yes, that seems like a controversial claim. Seems like an empirical claim, but there is something to this. When you give people freedom, don't they help themselves? Well, Hosper certainly thinks so. Yeah. So that wraps up our discussion of Hosper's and his libertarianism. Of course, he's going to encourage that drugs be legalized. I should be able to do whatever I want to my own body. That's my own right, after all. That's the libertarian position, after all, yes? That's the summary of the libertarian position by John Hospers. See you next time. Bye-bye.